And that's why now, when you have a bite to eat or a glass of wine, you actually think you think to yourself, actually, we're pretty similar, really, aren't we?
I'm retiring. I said, got an exclusive. I've had enough.
Fury AJ is beyond the 5v5. It's beyond Matchroom Queensbury. It's just the greatest fight in the history of British boxing. And there's only one man that can help us with that, I'm afraid. And that's Mr. Tyson Fury.
Welcome, Eddie, Frank, all the way for YouTube here. I want to go back to the start. I'll go with Frank first. When did you first become aware of Eddie Hearn getting into boxing?
Well, it's quite a few years ago. I think it was it Audley Harrison? I think that was it. Yeah, I think that was around the time. Then.
What did you make of Eddie when you saw him come into the sport? You've been around a lot.
I didn't really think. What did I think of him? I didn't think of that. I just thought, I'm going to be honest, I thought at the time, Audley Harrison, good luck with that one, because we'd been down the road with him a bit.
That's what my old man said.
But look, you've got to start somewhere. I mean, I think when I started out in boxing, a couple of fighters, early days, it didn't work out with them. And then you learn, hopefully, and build from some of the things, not say so much mistakes, but your hopes and so forth, and you sign fighters and you build. And as it's gone on in time, he's done extremely well, hasn't he? I mean, he's done a brilliant job with AJ. I mean, a fabulous job, and turned him into a British sport icon. And you never can take that away from him, what he's done there with him. And there's a great partnership, and they were loyal to each other, which is very unusual in any sport, let alone boxing. And I'll take my hat off to him for that in a big way.
The reason we're here today.
Sorry. You're choking up here.
The reason we're here today, you're on the same broadcaster for the first time since 2012, I think it was, when you were brought on Sky. Mate. Eddie, when you came up, I suppose you probably had earlier memories of Frank growing up as Barry's son and hearing his name mentioned around the house a lot, positively and negatively.
I think, my dad, I would sometimes see pictures of Frank and my dad, because I think when they came together, or they had a couple of projects they were working on or flirted to be working on at some point in other sports, it was never like, they were rivals because they both wanted to be top dog. That's all. And, socially, they would always get on. It wasn't like they'd be scrapping around when they come face to face. The difference between me and Frank was we never even met. I think if we would have met, we might have got on and we might have worked together sooner. But the problem is, in today's age, all you're doing is looking at interviews and clickbait, and it winds you up, and it make whether you think it has an effect or not. When you're a competitor, it makes you roll up your sleeves and go, "Oh yeah, right, yeah, okay, right," and that's what it was like. And I think I knew about Frank. Yeah, I mean, what was it? Ben Eubank 2 was, you promoted that with my dad,
yeah,
and I was 13 at the time. So even before that, they were from the same era of boxing.
Did you ever see yourself becoming rivals? Well,
no, I said earlier, when I was growing up, I never looked at my dad and went, "Cool, I hope I can be a boxing promoter one day." I probably wanted to be a fighter, but I was useless. So there was no chance of that either. So I stumbled into it. Even when I left education, and started, I was a sports agent. I'm represented sportsmen and athletes. Never wanted to be a boxing promoter. Never thought, I'd love to get into that. I was a boxing nut and enthusiast from 8. From the minute I went to my first show, I used to study Barry Hugman's boxing yearbooks. I used to know every record of every fighter that my dad represented, but never to be a promoter. And I stumbled into it. I was running poker tournaments. That's what I was doing. I was running all the big televised poker tournaments on TV. I just sat down at the World Series of boxing, of poker, sorry, and I got drawn on the same table as Audley Harrison. And we were doing prize fighter, which was doing really well. And he said, "You do boxing, don't you?" And I said, "No." I said, "I do prize fighter." He said, "Could you give me a fight?" And, I said, yeah, you're a big name, you are. I said, what we could do with you? You could fight in Prize Fighter, win that, win the European title, and then you could fight David Haye for the World Heavyweight Championship. And he went, can you do that? And I went, yeah. And then after that, I phoned my old man straight away. I said, do you know Audley Harrison? I said, I've just met him at a poker table. I reckon we could get him for the World Heavyweight Championship. He went, Audley Harrison? He went, not on my watch, mate. Good luck. And that was it. And that was all she wrote.
Frank, when Eddie was coming up and you moved on to Box Nation, as Eddie said, it was quite bitter at times. Was there anything in particular Eddie would have said that annoyed you over the years?
I don't know if I've ever been bitter. I mean, I think it's a lot of people on the outside looking in say that. I never spoke with him, so I didn't know what he was about. All I got was some of the clickbait, especially in the days of the early days of some of these YouTube channels, and they obviously had a good fun day out of it. And sometimes some of the things that were said, you sort of responded to them, and it was a bit of a laugh. Some couple of them were like, "Hang on a minute, what's that all about?" And you go back at them. But I never think about opposition. Never have. Never will do. What I focus on what we are in control of and what we can do, because that's how you judge a good promoter, on what you do under what circumstances. And when we left Sky before Eddie got the gig there. I left there about 9 months before then, because at that time Barney Francis was the head of sport, and he made a conscious decision basically to back out of boxing. And I think there were 4 promoters then. I think there was ourselves, Matchroom, Ricky Hatton and Frank Maloney. And he said, you're all going to get 8 dates each, and we're going to give you $100,000 a show. And I went, what? I said, what are we going to do with that? I was quite shocked. And that was a message like, basically, we're saving all our money for football, sod off. So we sod off. And I said to him, if we're going to lose our money, let's start our own boxing channel, which is what we did. And it was tough. I mean, the first what happened to us, the very first show we did, there were 3 investors. There was a big Indian production company who owned a couple of football clubs, cricket clubs in India, very big. There was ourselves, and there was a Russian, a very wealthy Russian young guy whose dad was an oligarch. And I've still got these messages, and we put all our money in. And I think Bellew was fighting Cleverly, doing a show in Liverpool, free to air for the first 6 months. So, no TV income. That was what we did. And put our money in. We ran the show, and the Russian, as I say, I've still got the message. It was an email and a text saying, I've wired my money, which I'm still waiting for today. It never ever came in, So suddenly we're like 12 million quid behind. And we wound up in court with this guy. He went bankrupt and disappeared. And in the meantime, Bill Ives from Raynham Steel got involved, and he become a partner with me in it. And that was it. But it was tough. But everybody said it's going to last 3 months. It was still going, but in that form, it was going for probably about 8-9 years. And then, and in that time, BT came into being. And then I think Sky then did the deal with Eddie, where she gave him all the boxing, because I think they see BT as getting into boxing, and they wanted to make sure that it did become a boxing, had all the boxing. And cut a long story short, it took us a few years. They sort of spoke with us. We never done a deal. We kept persevering with Box Nation, which we was doing fairly well with. It was tough times, losing money like it'll do. Like DAZN is losing and lost a lot of money, but the belief was there, and they got deep pockets, and it's coming through. There's no doubt about that. And with us, we then got to a situation where we done our deal with BT. BT then said they want to share our footage. We shared the shows with Box Nation, which we did for quite a while. Then they came in and said, right, we want you exclusively. And it was a very good deal for us. And we had to make a conscious decision, which we did, and went with them. And in that time, Eddie was going from strength to strength. He's done a fabulous job. He signed AJ and big shows, and British boxing was a big revival there. You know, a lot of it due to Eddie. We've done our bit against all odds and delivered some really good world title fights. We had on the channel. We had Canelo fights. We had all the big fights that were around the world. We had the majority of them, and it was it was tough. And then the BT, as I said, come into being, and we invested in fighters, which became a real challenge for us to build these fighters. And that was all about getting us to where we are today. The investment in those fighters got to where we are, and that's now why we're on DAZN, because we want to capitalise wide world with them. But all along now, this fella's kicking me in the legs, kicking me up the arse and so forth, and putting on some really, really good shows. But we kept building and building, and we all are where we are now today under one roof. I like to think as friends. And I've got great respect for what he's done and how they've gone about it. And the rivalry is going to continue in a big way, because we both want to be delivering the best shows to DAZN around the world.
Frank's obviously said a lot of complimentary things. What did you learn from Frank over them years during that, when he was on other channels, that kind of kept pushing you on?
That you're never going to nail him down and get the victory. He's always going to be there. He's never going to, and that's what people told me along the way as well, and when you think you might have him, he's back and he's, boom, a big announcement comes. It's like, blimey, where'd that come from? I think I said earlier, a lot of my education in business came within our rivalry. And it's not like boxing's not a normal business. I had a good grounding for boxing because I worked in poker for 5 or 6 years. And there's some very interesting characters in poker, like there's some interesting characters in boxing. But I think that a lot of my resilience and ability to handle pressure and deal with aggravation and problems just in boxing, a lot of that came from, the battle between me and Frank, because it was, especially early on, like when you're young and you just got into boxing, he's brilliant at applying pressure. I think that's, and the aim, it's a very uncomfortable business. Like, it's not easy, and you've got to be made of the right stuff to have the longevity in it. You can come in for 3 or 4 years with someone else's money and you can, be defiant, but to stand the test of time is something that earns its respect. And I think that's, I think we're at a stage now where he probably looks at me and says, fair play, no, you hung in there, and there's others that are in there, they won't be in there because they're just not the same, and but it really comes down to having a passion for boxing, I think. That's why I'm still here, because I love it. I don't need the aggravation. Didn't need the aggravation to start with, but I love boxing, and I love the thrill. I love the battle. I love, seeing people change their lives through, and I love to win, and I love to put on great nights. And I think these are all things that we share. And that's why now, when you have a bite to eat or a glass of wine, you actually think you think to yourself, actually, we're pretty similar, really, aren't we? We both love the sport of boxing.
Just finally for me, obviously we've had the 5v5, and without bringing it up, Eddie, Frank did win that one.
I don't remember that. A lot of people say that, but I don't.
Maybe the ultimate decider, maybe people would love still to see, and I know Tyson's retired at the minute, but AJ Fury, would that be the decider? Would that be a great run? Well, who's going to win it? Yeah,
I think this is something that's going to go on for a long time. We've actually submitted today our, not 5v5, our 10v10, really, to His Excellency to pick the battles that he wants to see commence in the upcoming 5v5. But, he got one up on the Dubois AJ fight as well. And Fury AJ is beyond the 5v5. It's beyond Matchroom Queensbury. It's just the greatest fight in the history of British boxing. And there's only one man that can help us with that, I'm afraid. And that's Mr. Tyson Fury. So, I think I respect Tyson's decision. And Frank would always say, kind of not leave him alone, but but one day I believe and hope that he'll call Frank and say, Frank, you know what? I've picked up enough dog shit. Let me fight again. And if he does, then it would be something very, very special.
Do you think on that, Frank?
On the 5v5, I'm retiring. I said, he got an exclusive. I've had enough. We go out on a win. No, I'm looking forward to that. And as regarding Tyson, of course, it's a fight we've all wanted to see and still want to see, but he's enjoying his retirement. He's retired, and that's it. I'm not going to pick up the phone to him and try and convince him to do something. It'd be wrong for me to do that to him and to his family. If he does, and it's a massive if, it's got to be of his own accord. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But no one can take away what he's done. 2-time world champion, been involved in some of the most iconic fights of the 21st century. Probably one of the 2 best heavyweights out there in the 21st century. And God bless him. And that's how I feel about it.
Thanks very much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
It's strange to see you both here together.
No, it's good. Wait till we start our podcast. You're all going to be out of business.